they put themselves in a place where they decreed certain things securities, certain things not securities. My view on that is there was a logic to why Bitcoin and Ethereum were ruled commodities as opposed to securities. And that's because when you deem something a commodity, you can then have futures contracts against it, which then allow you, as Leo Melamed from the CME said, to tame the price. Because what's happening right now is the reason that Bitcoin hasn't reacted the way people thought post halving is you have massive arbitrage going on between the big dogs who are shorting the futures and buying the underlying ETF. So most of the inflows to those ETFs are not really retail flows and actual purchases. They're just arbitrage to capture the spread between the future and the spot.
Crypto family. That was Mark Yusko telling you how the Bitcoin ETFs are being manipulated, and this is why Bitcoin's price could be dropping here as of late. In today's clip, he talks about some of his recent thoughts on Bitcoin and where he sees it going next and the future of crypto. So, highly recommend you guys check this one out all the way to the end. Hit that subscribe button. We have new videos coming out every single day. Let's go ahead and see what Mark has to say here in today's clip.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe Ethereum. I really don't like Ethereum much as money. I like it as a global computer. But things like Dash or Monero or things like that do have some cryptocurrency aspects to them. An NFT, a non-fungible token. Now, it's not a monkey JPEG, right, which is what everyone associates, but I don't even like the term NFT or non-fungible token because it is accurate, right? Non-fungible means unique. Token means a entry on a ledger. It's not like a little coin or something. It's an entry on a ledger, which is all a blockchain really is, a series of entries on a ledger. But the difference is blockchains are permanent and immutable. They're not centralized like a COBOL database that we all use every day with our Visa or MasterCard. If they want to turn it off, they can. Or if we want to store all our data on the cloud, they could keep it if they want. Or we put our money in the bank, it's on a ledger, but it's the bank's money, right? So it's not our money anymore. And what blockchains do is they fix that. They let us own things. So Web 1 was read, Web 2 was read write, putting stuff on the internet. Web 3 is read write own. Blockchains allow us to own things. And so non-fungible token really, I think, should be called a digital property right. All an entry on a ledger is a record of someone's ownership of some property. It could be a JPEG, it could be a title, it could be a stock certificate, it could be a bond, it could be any asset. It could be the Mona Lisa, not the physical Mona Lisa, but the right to own the Mona Lisa. But that's ultimately what blockchains are good for. And Eric Schmidt, from Google said it best. So Satoshi Nakamoto gave us Bitcoin, but more importantly, gave us the technology to create unique assets in the digital sphere. And what does that even mean? Well, think about it. Think about stocks, right? In the olden days, you and I would meet in New York at the Buttonwood tree, literally big tree where the stock exchange is today. And we would bring our analog stuff, stock certificates and pieces of paper, banknotes, and we would meet and we would exchange. And we had to be physically proximate. And the real problem was, if you see in gangs in New York, on the way to the Buttonwood tree, those guys with the top hats would steal our stuff. So the stock exchange built a building and said, come inside and you'll be safe, but you still had to get there. So they came up with an idea with the advent of computing, the electronic age, to say, you know what? Put the banknotes in the bank and let them be ones and zeros electronic database. Put your stock certificates in Dallas, Texas, and DTCC and have these QSIPs, these alphanumeric codes. And you guys can change. In the old days, physical people would go and do the bartering on the floor of the stock exchange. Now it's just computers. There's no people there. Not no people, but almost no people. Well, that's fine, but those stock certificates still have to exist in Dallas, Texas. Well, why? Why not create unique digital assets, entries on a blockchain ledger, and that's the digital age. So we went from the analog age to the electronic age to the digital age, and everything in the world, every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every collectible car, every case of wine, every private business, all $700 trillion of assets will eventually be entries on a blockchain. Blockchains will be the computing platform in which all of us work, and we'll buy and sell assets in the digital realm instead of the electronic realm. Look, most of the problem with many utility tokens is they are not truly decentralized at all, right? They are pointers to AWS or Azure servers. The only, to me, on chain means on chain. If I want to own an asset on chain, I want it physically on the chain. And to me, proof of work is the best way to do that. So ultimately, I think Bitcoin has a huge advantage, kind of the Lord of the Rings, one chain to rule all chains. Now, does that mean that virtual machines are useless? No. Does it mean that I think there are weaknesses in proof of stake and proof of history? Yes. Does it mean that they are more centralized than they should be? Absolutely. What will fix that? More development activity, more nodes, more decentralization. But in the short run, yeah, they are overly centralized comparatively. Yeah, so look, the problem with trying to time the yen implosion, Kyle Bass has been trying to do it for 15 years. 15 years. And there are people that predated him that said, hey, when you get to 100% debt to GDP, you got to collapse. Well, maybe it's 150. Well, maybe it's 180. Well, maybe it's 220. Well, the reality is because of the yen carry trade. And what is the yen carry trade? So if you have interest rates at zero and people from around the world can go borrow money at zero and buy anything with a yield, that's a carry trade. So for years, the yen was the axe in that global carry trade, which was really interesting because other countries could have lowered their rates to zero, which eventually they did. And so there was this period 3 years ago where the yen actually strengthened. You're like, that can't be, right? Everything about this country is imploding except the quality of life. The quality of life is really, really high, especially if you happen to live already in Tokyo. Food's great, apartments are great, it's great quality of life. But short version of the long tail is once the Fed went back to punishing, punishing the masses by raising rates, um, or I should say, unpunishing savers. Right? Because by going to zero, you're punishing the savers and you're stealing money from the savers to give it to the rich because they lever up everything. So once they reversed that, the yen carry trade was back, and it has been back as the preferred trade. And so the dichotomy is you're right. In theory, a country with 226% debt to GDP should implode. The yen should skyrocket out of control, and it should be a really, bad experience. But the demand for yen to fund this global carry trade, which is encouraged, by the way, is almost infinite because the fiat countries keep printing more money. So think about the race to the bottom. Everyone quotes DXY, right? Oh, look how strong the dollar is. No, it's not. It's just less weak than the yen or the euro. If you look at it relative to renminbi, it's actually not strong. So this global race to the bottom is inevitable because of demographics. Demographics are destiny. 65 to 85-year-old people, they don't spend a lot. They tend to save and they like fixed income. And so what we've seen as Japan first, then Europe, than the US. Every single day, 10,000 people in the United States and Europe turn 65 for the next 7+ years. And that is going to continue to play out. So if you want to know what's going to happen in US and Europe, just look at Japan 11 years ago. And so, they peaked in 89, we peaked in 2000, their debt got downgraded. 11 years later, US debt gets downgraded. Same kind of things happen. And ultimately, I think the yen is a controlled demolition, not a out of control demolition. And I think the yen carry trade is back to being the most preferred because they're the place that still has zero rate.